in education. I engaged somebody on social media recently, and the person was telling me that times when they hear people say things like, I don't believe that some people don't go to school, some girls don't have the opportunity to go to school. The person said they don't believe it. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't believe it? The person said, I don't believe that anybody would not have the opportunity to go to school because of their gender. I'm like, oh, welcome to my world. Welcome to my world, because I say so because a lot of women will tell you about how growing up their brothers were sent to school, they were not allowed to go to school, or they had to go start up businesses or manage the family business so they could send their brothers to school. Lots of women, and more women are allowed to tell their stories, because if you engage so many women, I saw a pattern. What came to mind really was the women in my life, say a mother, a woman. Most of the women, you just know them as mothers. Most of them, you call them Mama Lagbaja. You never stop to wonder that this woman was once a girl. She once had dreams, aspirations, and everything. Have you ever wanted to find out from her if where she is right now is exactly where she wants to be, or where she wanted to be, or she would have done something else if she had the opportunity? And I'm thinking, so you mean that these women that we have going around, these older women, so it's possible that motherhood is not just the only thing she wanted to do. She probably wanted to be a doctor, she wanted to be a nurse. But for different reasons, it just did not happen. And now that's why we're having to discuss the role of the government in addressing gender disparity in education, as it is critical in creating a fair and inclusive society where women and girls can actually just thrive. The same opportunities given to men also, and they have it. And of course, I will not be doing that alone. I have my guests joining me, and today I'm speaking to Florence Oladotuamo, an educational consultant, and definitely who best to have this conversation with us than an educational consultant. Good afternoon, Florence.
Good afternoon, Esther.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Good afternoon, Nigerians.
Yes, Nigerians, we're doing great amidst everything going on, but we're fine.
Mm.
So now, I was stating earlier in my intro that some people actually believe that being a girl or being a woman is not a good enough reason for you to have been subjugated or not being allowed to go to school. And I'm saying this is actually a valid reason.
Let me do some background to this topic.
Okay.
In 2012, United Nations came up with the 17 Sustainable Development Goals.
Mhm.
Interestingly, 3 of them address what we are talking today. SDG 4 talks about education for all, take notes, all.
Mhm.
SDG 5 talks about gender equality.
Yes.
So that means irrespective of whether you're a man or a woman, or a boy or a girl,
You get the same
you get the
opportunity.
same opportunity. And of course, SDG 10 talks about reduced inequality. If there was no inequality, there will be no need to have reduced inequality.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, globally and even nationally, we haven't done well in these SDGs. The goal is to ensure we have better people, greater prosperity, greater peace, and everything good before year 2030. This is 2024. We have 6 years or 7 years to 2030, and we're still talking about these things. Now, whether somebody believes or not, it's so clear. There are mindsets, there are superstitions, there are myths to support the fact that there's gender inequality against the girl child. Okay, let me even start by saying, what exactly do we mean by gender inequality or gender disparity? When you have unequal access and opportunity between the male and the female. It's as simple as that. Unequal access and opportunity. You do not have the same level playing field for both genders. You cannot come on air and begin to speak, recklessly. You have to back it up with facts and figures.
Definitely.
So I did some research, and these statistics will interest anybody. In year 2016, literacy rates for people between ages 15 and 24 show that 59% male were literate, while 41 were females. Are you saying that? 2017, university enrollment, 57% were male, 43 were female. 2016, lecturers in colleges of education, 66% were males, 34 were females. The gap. 2017, professors in the universities, 85% were male, just 15 were females.
You can imagine.
You can imagine. USAID and World Bank said that out of the 72 million out-of-school children in Nigeria, 23% are males, 77 are females. And finally, let's look at the basic education, which is for children from primary to GSS 3. 56% are boys, and 44% are females. So if anybody is doubting that we have gender inequality, these statistics show otherwise.
It's enough to prove it.
Why are we here? Why do we have this ugly picture that works against the girl child or women in general? There are mindsets, wrong mindsets, superstitions, and myths, like I said. People believe that boys are smarter than girls. But it's not always true.
A lot of times.
In some instances, girls are smarter. But because it has become a norm, that's why people even prefer to have boys as children. When they have boys, there's so much celebration. Oh, now boy, oh, but if it's a girl, they're not as excited.
So let me mention something here.
Yeah.
I was in a religious center one time.
Yeah.
The pastor was going to announce that somebody just had a baby, and the person was like, "It's a bouncing baby. It's a girl. Okay, it's a beautiful baby girl." When the person did that, I was like, "What exactly? What is this conflict? What is?"
So it's not bouncing.
So yes, because
it's
I don't even know what that was, but you look at my face like, what difference does it make? So you can imagine how much we have these things ingrained in our mind, and our mindset,
and those things have formed who we are today. A lot of times, people think that girls are supposed to be inferior to boys, dependent on them or subordinate to them. You will hear of African proverbs like, whatever you do, whatever level you whatever level of education, you end up in the kitchen. I had that as a growing girl. People also think that science and math subjects are boys' subjects. So what is left for the girls? Arts and social science, home economics, exactly,
Greek and all of that. I remember back in secondary school, there was this conversation if you want to go for intro tech or food and nutrition. Food and nutrition for what? For what?
For girls now.
I didn't do that, please. Oh,
it was me for girls. Even in sports, people think boys are better than girls. In leadership positions, we want to make somebody a captain, maybe class captain or prefect. It's the boys.
Then the girl is
so you find out that over time, all these things have shaped who we are as a people. And unfortunately, even the girls and the women have accepted this. So this has to change. This really has to change.
Yes, definitely it has to change, because I like the fact that we're having to use this kind of practical examples, like every day-to-day examples that you can see. So you don't even have to think about it. If you don't understand the data part that shows the gap, at least look around you. When you go to classes, you see the boy as the class captain, then the girl is the assistant. Why? Who says they cannot have the same opportunity? Who said the girl cannot also deliver in these different positions? And that's why we're having this conversation, and we're having to look at the role of the government in addressing this disparity that we actually have. The phone lines are open: 07000 917 917. You can listen live via the website www.wfm917.com. Download the mobile app to listen live, WFM 917. Now let's talk about the government. We just spoke about the SDGs and how we have just 6 years left to reach them. And we look at us here in Nigeria, the number of out of school children that we still have, that we're still dealing with. And let's be honest, somebody said something, economy is going in this year. A lot of parents will be forced to either take their children out of school or change their children's school to something more affordable. That's true. Some children might have to wait for some siblings to finish a certain class before they can go back to school. All of these things, put it together, at the end of the year, if we continue with this economy that we currently have that people are complaining about, it will have a toll definitely on our education index. Now the government has to come in at some point. The government really needs to come in and bridge this gap, because it's not just enough that we say we have initiatives. How are we following them to the end to see that they actually have the impact on the girls?
Good. I mean, it would be unfair to say government hasn't done anything. Government has done some things, a few things, but we still have a lot to do. For instance, the Universal Basic Education Act was enacted in 2004, and it says every child must have access to free and compulsory education from primary school to GSS3, irrespective of your gender, irrespective of where your parents live or their socioeconomic status. So it means you are a child in Bayelsa Creek or in one village in Oyo State or one village in Akure, you should have access to education. They went again to say, okay, Child Rights Act, every child has a right to education. They went to say Equality Act. All these things government has done. But then, what is the level of implementation? What is the level of enforcement? How have parents keyed into this? This Child Rights Act thing I mentioned, I was so heartbroken when I saw that only 26 states in Nigeria have adopted the Rights Act. So it means 10 states in Nigeria, I don't want to mention the states, 10 states have not adopted the Child Rights Act. So it means when you go on the streets in those states, you see school-age children who are supposed to be in school, who are not in school, roaming the streets, doing one thing or the other, and you turn the other eye.
Most states are beginning to pick that up, and there's some kind of update, and some states will tell you that they have a law that is similar to that they have working in their state.
I tell you, Esther, as we speak, we still have 10 states who haven't adopted. And that's on one hand. On the other hand, just you said about the economy, it's so unfortunate because when there's poverty, as we see in the land, there's poverty, people have very, very low purchasing power. What comes to their mind first? What needs do they want to meet? The basic needs, according to Maslow. Food, clothing, and shelter.
Yeah.
Education doesn't come to the front burner. So most families will just say, okay, once you can eat, leave education.
First, yeah.
Then we have so many children that they can't take care of. What happens, then the boy-girl thing comes to play. The parents will now say, okay, boys to school. You girls begin to cook, begin to clean,
because somebody is going to come and marry you. And
in the process,
the
girl becomes pregnant. The 13-year-old girl, the 14-year-old girl becomes pregnant because the boys are in school. She is not there. And of course, so this thing is a trend. It's a trend that if it is not checked, if it is not controlled, before we know it, I hope the statistics will not even get worse as the years go by. Esther, let me shock you. World Economic Forum also came up with another global gender gap index in 2021. They surveyed 156 countries.
Okay.
Guess what? Where we ranked? Nigeria ranked 139.
Out of 156.
Out of 156.
Wow.
In 2021.
Just imagine if you send your child to school and in a class of 156 and the child
139.
Of course, as a parent, you know how to react.
A year after, 2022 went up. Let's not for Nigeria. We went up and we now ranked 123. Okay. But the question is, at that rate, how long would it take us to close that gap? I don't know, maybe 50 years, maybe 100 years.
That's a lot of work.
So that's a lot of work. This is a stark reality of what is going on. So if anybody is still saying, oh, there's nothing like gender equality, the person does not know what he or she is saying.
Well, again, sometimes or a lot of times, privileges can be blinding. There are people who have never had to wait or bother or think about where their next meal will come. Some people have always lived in, I like to call it a bubble. A bubble because they only see life from what they have always known, which is what experiences actually do for you, whereby you only see what is within your space. The set of people you speak to, the kind of people you speak to, that's what you know. I'm going to take a friend for an instance here. I have a friend who lives on the island. The very first time this person came to the mainland, the person was like, so this is how blah blah blah. I'm like, what? Because this person, if this friend is coming from the island, this person is coming to Ikeja, going to the airport. Most they barely have any business. So I'm like, but this is it. This is the reality of it. So when you sit in your cozy homes, your offices, and talk about things, I'm telling you, come to the street and see reality. Come and touch grass outside and see that life is not just about being indoors and you're speaking English. Yes, the English sound all good, but come and see people in that state. We're talking about people having to choose between feeding their children and sending them to school. You definitely pick feeding them first before going to school. But the government has to need to be able to put in measures. I know that there's some states. I recall there was a conversation we had one time. Edo State, I remember, was having to put in some kind of measures whereby if a child is found on the road during school hours, the parents will be arrested. And we took up that conversation. How is it that you're arresting me for not being able to send my child to school? It's a different thing if you find out why am I not sending the child to school. If I am able to do so, if I'm comfortable enough to do so, then it's a different thing. It's a different thing if I'm able to do so and I didn't send the child to school. But the fact that you can even see me where I am and you know that I barely make even enough and you want to arrest me for not sending the child to school, that's counterproductive. It's counterproductive. And we need to be able to find ways to bridge these gaps. Now let's talk about the people themselves, changing mindsets, letting people know that there's nothing wrong in sending both the boy and the girl to school. There's nothing wrong. Yeah, I know that it is changing, but there's still a lot to do.
Yeah, there's a lot to do. You see, Nigeria, where how do I put it now? Three factors play very significant roles in the way we do things: culture, tradition, and religion.
Definitely.
And as we speak, this is 2024, 6 years to the realization of the SDG. We're still so much enshrined with what does culture say? What does tradition say? What does religion say? As I speak to you, some people still think that my children don't have to go to school. They don't have to go to school to be successful. You know, after all, this and this did not go to school and is doing well. Maybe some of these parents did not even go to school, and in their own way, they think they are doing well. So why? You know, then of course we have talked about poverty. We have talked about poor, low literacy level. We have talked about poor family planning. All those things impact negatively on people's attitude. And again, unemployment.
Definitely.
You see your neighbor who struggled to send his or her children to school, probably sold his land, sold this, sold that. The children are out of school and they don't have jobs. What kind of motivation does that give people who did not send their children to school? So those are the examples some people will refer to. See, Babalagbaja, he spent all the money he had in his savings to send his son to the university. 4 years down the line, the boy is out of school, he has no job. So unemployment is another problem. Why people do not think children should go to school. And again, when they have to make a choice, it is the girls who have to sit at home. Very, very unfortunate.
Very, very unfortunate, really, I must say. Very, very unfortunate. And this is what we get to see when we look at you go to schools and you're wondering why girls who started in school with the boys, you don't see them climbing the ladder.
There's a drop.
There's a drop. Something happens along the line. It's either somebody is taking the girl out of school, or they're unable to keep up with the costs, or child marriage.
Yeah.
They marry her off because they want to use the money that he gets from the supposed in-laws to take care of the other family siblings. And you're having to wonder, at what point exactly is the woman doing something for her own self? Like, at what point is whatever it is that you are doing, is it going to be for me? And the government really needs to look into this. I know that when you talk about the government, you're talking about the Ministry of Women Affairs, talking about the Ministry of Education. It is interesting that we have all of the amazing reports. Look at the different reports, different research, different accounts, but how are we actually touching the reality to see that we're actually making these things happen? Now you want to look at the things that we have in place. Lagos State, for instance, you go to the public schools. To an extent, you can see that some of the schools are conducive. Look at other states. Look at the rural areas.
You can't say the same thing.
You can't say the same thing. You go to schools, even to date, they're still sitting on blocks or on the windows. Now, I would rather have my child stay at home with me, with me, if I cannot afford to send the child to a better school where I have to pay. Because one, I don't have that money. Two, I don't want to send the child to a school that's not well equipped where they have to sit on blocks or carry blocks. Then the child will go and get injured, and I'll still have to treat with the same money that I don't have. So what would you pick? You rather leave the child at home and okay, yes,
she's alive.
Yes, which is a problem in itself. And we know how it can be like when we have to bring in culture into these conversations. You find out that even some educators in court still have
respect.
Yes, let's respect the tradition and culture, even when we know that it's wrong, or it's going to dampen the strength or the light that this girl has, to move out of that mind and just ensure that we're able to do something long term for these girls.
Yeah.
We need to be able to do so, really. Well, we're hoping that things will change, really. We're hoping that things will change. 26 minutes past 3, and gender disparity in education. My name is Esther Larike, and my guest today, I'm speaking to Florence Oladotuamo, an educational consultant, and we're still looking at the movement. The phone lines are open 07000 917 917, or you can send us a text or a WhatsApp message on 070 565 37. Now, let's talk about the government collaborating with schools. First, the school feeding program is there. But
was there.
Yeah. I know that there's okay. Let's hear from this caller. Hello, good morning. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Yeah. Oh, do you want to call us back on also this present administration is also working around bringing it on board and all of that. But so far, when you speak to parents, because I recall speaking to some people, let's take the Arepo school here, the primary school here, for example. The food that was brought to these children was nothing to write home about. It wasn't anything encouraging. It wasn't something I could send my child to school comfortably and say, oh, my phone alone. It's not something I would say they would give them food at school. It wasn't anything. And there are funds allocated for this, but we as a people, have we allowed for the government initiatives and schemes to actually impact us directly without us having to get in the way with our selfish interests?
You see, number one thing that we should do quickly, the recommendation that state budgets, national budgets should devote minimum of 26% to education, to provide infrastructure, for human resources, for material resources and the rest of them. 2023 we did 8.2%. Esther, 8.2 versus 26. This year we did 7. So with such meager amount, you're talking of the food they made available wasn't good enough, because the funds are not there. To now make it worse, the little fund, the meager funds that are made available, some people mismanage. That is even more painful. You don't have enough, and the little that's available, some people are taking it away. That is sad. So the money doesn't get to where it's supposed to get to. It doesn't achieve the purpose for which it is supposed to achieve. So that is a problem. And anywhere in the world, private level, public level, education is expensive. Don't let us deceive ourselves. Education is expensive. Go try ignorance, and you'll see which one is really more expensive. So the point I'm making is funding should be addressed, and side by side, monitoring to ensure that those funds are efficiently and effectively utilized. Then we need to engage traditional and religious leaders. Don't forget that these people are revered people. The people respect them, they listen to them. So government cannot do it alone. We're talking about collaboration between government and community. Government should find a way to bring the traditional rulers, the religious leaders on board. Let them buy what we are selling. Let them know that education is non-negotiable. Whether once they take it, it's easier for them to now, pass it on to the people. Then, of course, women empowerment, advocacy, gender-sensitive issues. We must address all those things. We must ensure that people look at women and girls differently, with respect, with entitlement, with their rights. They shouldn't be denied of their rights because of their gender. For goodness sake, did you make yourself a lady, Esther?
I didn't.
So why should anybody discriminate against you simply because you are a woman? Even some successful women who have broken rank, who have, shot into the limelight in STEM, in science, technology, engineering, math, we still see society looking down on them, criticizing them. You see a 35-year-old female engineer, for instance, maybe yet to marry, yet to have children. What would they say? It's because she's a woman. She has read all her life. Nobody is looking at her. It's possible you have a 40-year-old counterpart who is a male, who is not married,
and people will still tell you how the person can always still get married.
Do you get it? An average child is confused. What do I do? Should I go the route of marriage and be in the good books of my community, or do I trailblaze? Like some women have done. I saw one lady on television the other day, Lady Benz. I don't know if you have come across the advert. She's a woman and she works on automobile.
Oh, I'm not sure.
I was impressed, and I'm hoping that such a woman will bring other younger girls, to come and learn the trade. Let's prove to them, to the whole world, that whatever boys can do, girls can also do. Sometimes even better. We should just come out of the box and think differently.
Yes, definitely. I totally agree with you. We need to be able to engage our religious leaders, traditional leaders as well. Talk to parents, whatever it is that you're going to be doing. Just look at this child as a child that has a right. I know that sometimes it can be very hard to get read and look at these different laws and what have you, but if we can have them very simplified in a way that people know that for every child that you have, there's certain rights that you cannot deprive this child from, at least until they are up to age to be able to make their own decisions. They rely on you for certain things, and you should be able to make it happen for them. So that's one thing that I want us to actually talk about as we wrap up. Uh, we're wrapping up this conversation, and I want to talk to parents and ensuring that whatever it is that you do, ensure that you're thinking about long term for this child. You're thinking about long term for this child, because the time will come when that child will begin to question what you have invested in them, when you begin to make your demands as parents too.
Exactly. Just a minute before I talk to the parents, something government has to work on: improve security.
Yeah. Of course.
Insecurity is also an issue. You talked about the Chibok girls.
Chibok
Every
girls.
day, WFM remembers them.
Yeah.
9 years. 9 years? Is it 9 or 10? 2014.
It's going to be
10 years.
So we are hoping that the girls, hopefully, that they
Okay.
come back. Because we actually don't want to record this number.
Exactly.
But just in case it doesn't happen.
Esther, imagine a woman had 4 girls, 4 daughters, and she sent the first child to Chibok Secondary School in 2014. And this girl, the eldest, was kidnapped.
Yeah.
And up to date, the girl has not returned. How will you tell the woman to send the other 3
another
children?
one.
So that is the problem. So government has to address security. It's so important. No, having said that, I want to talk to parents, mothers and fathers. I beg you, do not rob these children their